Alright everybody, welcome in. This is going to be another Stormgate cast, and I'm Algorithmore. And today's cast is going to be another user-submitted replay. And this one is going to be starring one of the popular players out there is Andreas in the blue. And his opponent in the red, and the submitter of this replay is Riptide, the Vanguard player. And I will tell you this, that Riptide is new to the ladder. At least I have not seen this particular player before. But that is because they might be playing on an alt, but have asked me maybe not to share who they are. So there's a little secret and mystery in this game. Who is really Riptide? Who is controlling this scout right now? Will we ever know? Will Algorithmore ever spill the tea? The answer is probably not. Probably not today, but we will get to watch this match. And Andreas, since we are trying to watch Andreas here and see what kind of interesting things he can teach us about the Infernal faction, we see him on 10 imps here. He's got, sorry, I said 2 vaults. His second vault's still on the way in the back there. And he's got his second shrine on the way as well. Meanwhile, his units had sent across. What happened to that brute? I thought that... Oh, there's the brute. He's a little behind the Hexen. And they are just straight on going to Riptide's base here. And what we see here is there are 12 bobs here ready to be chewed on by a brute and a Hexen. But 2 get pulled off. And they're going to fight. And the scout has also returned here. The 2 bobs pull back now. And now the scout has pulled back after taking a skull of Cheddar. Needs to go find a cabbage. And now we get the overcharge down. And 6 more bobs get pulled. A lancer is out. And the brute gets split trying to get the scout. And indeed successfully gets the scout. Sacrificing one of his fiends to do so. That Hexen, incredibly brave but still alive, manages to skirt herself away. And she might still be on cooldown from her initial... She did a teleport right away. So she might have to walk home today. She sends a skull back in to see what she can see. What we do see is Riptide is on Biokinetics Lab, which probably means we're going to see Exos coming out. Unless this is intended to be a very fast kinetic redirect build, which has not been as popular in the more recent patch. That was certainly the way to go in the previous patch. But it is more Lancers coming out, so maybe it is a kinetic redirect build. Or maybe they were just queued up early not to waste any cycles on the racks before the BK Lounge showed up. And it is Quick Draw Hustle we're going to see. So this is not intended to be for the kinetic redirect. We may see that upgrade coming out. But it's been more meta. Oh, look at that fiend. Can he get out of there? Clever. But it's been a little bit more of an exo game again, or an exo meta since we have had the last patch. And 2 fiends have... One of these fiends, I believe, was the leftover from the brute. The other one came from getting a skull on one of those slimes. May have been the last kill, I'm not sure. Or the last hit, I should say, and getting the kill, which gives you the mineral or the luminite boost, of course. What are these fiends doing? I think they're just running back and forth looking for bases, or maybe they were looking for units to harass. I didn't realize there's this big long back door over here you can hide in. Is there one of those up here too? Yes, there is. Oh, curious. I guess I've never been proxied there by a Celestial. I'm sure it's popular. And Fiends trying to get on Bobs, that's just never going to happen. Bobs, they can repair each other and they have infinite life. So Fiend just trying to make them mad, and the Exo takes him out. And Riptide is got his Lancer Force going for these Slimies. Meanwhile, let's check in on Andreas. He's got a 3rd base and a 4th base up. Does he have some upgrades? He is up to tier 2. He does have Ritual Chamber as this Plague Axe is on the way. And it's a ton of broodies. Big broody ball with just 2 gaunts. 3 gaunts. 3 gaunts is a strange number of gaunts to have. Tells me something went wrong. Oh no! Is that the Gaunty Guts right there? It may be. We will never know since we weren't watching when that happened. Here's a lead Exo. I wonder if that was looking for mines. But Riptide feels happy and wants to engage here. Nightfall Infestation only catching the Lancers, but still getting a pretty good shot. With one Hellborn in the back there. Yeah, we're starting to see those Lancers go down. But Andreas decides to pull back to the Shroud, and in fact is in full retreat here. A nice Manifest Shroud Stone, but it gets picked off really quick with some stutter step focus fire. And it looks like Riptide is content to get that damage and walk away, not wanting to fight in there. Using, of course, the quick draw hustle to get as much out of the mobility of the Exos as he can. This is an interesting positioning of some units, but I wonder if that was intentional or maybe due to some quick micro. But Riptide back up onto the high ground here. The last Lancer goes down, so it's only an Exo ball now. No medtechs added or anything yet. I imagine we will see some. And third base up here for Riptide, but it's 4 bases, not fully saturated yet for Andreas. And a Nightfall Infestation, another one, as well as the Hellborn still raining down those fireballs. They are not yet on tier 3, and a shield going down, shields up I should say, the shield going up on the Exo, which you don't see that every day. But when all you have is Exos, might as well use the shield up on one of them. And Andreas, once again, turning to fight. The Brutes largely getting picked off by the stutter step of the Exos. But again, it's the Hellborn in the back, as well as the Gaunts that are trying to do the main damage here. The Brutes are intended to tank. At least that's the way we justify their existence. If they're not able to do any damage, which is often the case, then they must be just there to soak up hits. And lots of low Exos in retreat. It looks like they're going to go do some creeping maybe. But there is a health cap. It's about to refresh. So they will be healing here slowly. But we'll have to reclaim that health cap if they really want to continue to get back up to full health and then maybe become an effective force to re-engage. Meanwhile, Andreas, what's up here? Largely just rebuilding a ton of Gaunts. Those were left over from the last engage, as well as a few Hellborn. More Hellborn being added, as well as Brutes. He's about to engage, in fact, just starts engaging these creeps as Riptide is tearing into this base. And we're going to see the Shrine actually go down. A few units get pumped out of these production, but that's not enough to slow it down. Andreas is in retreat while some of his units actually stayed to fight. I was going to say, I wonder if that was intentional. And we are talking about Andreas here, so it's unlikely that he, made a bunch of misclicks or something there. Although he did leave 3 Fiends behind, so what am I saying? Maybe he's not perfect. Could it be true? Of course, if you are an RTS enjoyer, you know that even the best players in the game, in the world, are not perfect players. It's almost impossible to play this game in a sense that you would call perfect. But here's Andreas coming down with a pretty good play, which is a Gaunt drop, and with it he snags some Bobs, and the Fiends left over are trying to take out the Sentry Post, but they ain't going to get it as the Bobs are repairing it. Another drop goes down, and it looks like a few more Bobs got taken out, but these Sentry Posts are doing a pretty good job of, forcing the Gaunts to engage them and the Fiends. And the Bobs can just hide behind them It's worth remembering, of course, that the sentry posts are even unmanned, if you would call it that, without, say, a Lancer in them or an Exo or something else. They're still pretty good. That's a GG. Wow. I missed out on this battle from Riptide here on the side, and I guess there was an army going down. My bad on that, looking at the harass. But it looks like this army here did get tore into by some Vulcans and Exos here, and at least we're getting to see the tail end of that. Thanks for the early GG, or the late exit of the game, Riptide. So we can at least watch the rest of this army get pulled down. And, you know, maybe that was a bit early, but I guess this force is enough that Andreas felt that he wasn't going to be able to reinforce into this and win this game. So thanks a lot, Riptide, for sending this along. And because he sent me 2 games, let's get into that second game. Alright, here we are back at it. This is going to be the second game between these two. And yeah, let me introduce them once again. In the blue Infernal is our favorite Infernal player, one of the best in the world, Andreas. And his opponent, managing to win that last game with a nice little bio ball plus some Vulcans, is a Riptide. In the red Vanguard, playing the Vanguard faction. And again, I will mention, this may be the off faction for someone you might know out there in the real world. Who is it? Will we ever know? I don't know. Maybe put your guesses in the old comments down below. Tell me who you think this Vanguard player is. Is it Rail? Is it Snockstar? Who knows? Who could it be? But let's see here. For Andreas, it was a vault into a shrine into a second vault. No meat farms or nothing. And immediately, once again, this looks like a similar opening to the game, as Andreas is going to march his units straight across the map and try and punish an early command post. We see a Lancer out. There is another Lancer. Oh, that's a pup. And immediately, so the skull goes on to the Lancer. The Lancer is obviously microing to try and take out the Hexen, but both units are trying to just get a kill here. The Brute and the Hexen just want to see if they can kill either of these units. And both of them just full on running away. Riptide choosing another Lancer just running by too, so I'm not sure where they're going. But the Bobs have turned to fight, and nice micro, nice split Brute micro to get those Fiends out of there. And yeah, teleports away and uses those 2 Fiends to try and harass a little bit more. And wow, are we going to see a Bob kill? A Bob went down. This is probably, mark this date in history, the first time a Bob was killed in harass. And it happened today. And it happened by Andreas. So, Andreas proving that Bobs are not invincible, as I keep claiming they are. What are these guys doing? Just, oh, cabbage hunting. That's why they were out on the map. Trying to eat cabbages. Like, where are they just running out onto the map? Hey, Mr. Bob. Get back to work there, buddy. Oh, he's like, no, I got a job. My job is build this habitat. Alright, so Andreas managing to take his early harass and turn it into a creeping force. As his Fiends there. And a couple extra Brutes added. Having cleared out his health camp, now vision camp, and working on the energy camp. And we do see Riptide moving his units, which is mostly a Lancer force. So both these players sticking to a similar strategy from last game. At least so far. We do have a BK Lounge out. aka the Biokinetics Lab. Sorry, my friend Frank has got me calling that the BK Lounge, and that's just how it is. Riptide adding the exos now, and we've got some fiends out that I think... Are they hiding there? I can't even see them. But the pup can spot them. Wow, they're super invisible in there. That's those new effects. I've never actually seen that almost completely hide units like that before. That's cool. The energy camp is being taken out, but the fiends are not looking to harass it. They're just going to try and steal these towers and get some map control. There's a single scout there, but backed up by the exos. And so now this fiend trying to take a camp. A couple exos split off to go deal with it. And they get it. Some overcharged Bobs going on, it looks like, to take a third, and it's mostly exos for Riptide here. And okay, chasing the fiends back. There's still this one fiend hiding here. And Andreas is going for his Luminite camp as he's already got his third up. And like we've seen before, he's got Ritual Chambers, his Plague Axes, yes. It's late, it looks like it goes with the third. So he's been timing that maybe later. And Plague Axe is just finished and he goes into a Hexen Adept training. That's cool to see. He is up on tier 2. Means could go for Reaper Rush and Master Training. And I don't see a Spire out yet. These units took the tower and look like they're going to go for the health tower. Whereas Andreas is positioning himself for an attack. And a few freelancers here. Not exactly sure what Riptide was doing with them. Took out some Fellhogs, but that was it. And the rest of this force is taking over the health camp. Andreas still staying on his side with his army. Not moving out to retake the health camp yet and allowing those Lancers to heal back up to full. Oh, and look at this. A second Bioforce being moved out too. So this is very small. It's not going to do very well against this. And indeed, as the Hellborn rain down some fire on it, it is forced to retreat. One Lancer is super low. But just going back to that health camp and being like, fine. Taking it. Exo's over here taking the energy camp now. And Andreas still staying on his natural. Looks like he's moving over there now. Maybe preparing for an attack. Meanwhile, Riptide has... Ooh, denied this third. And Andreas moving his whole army over here. Unfortunately, these units are a bit out of position because they could have moved in here. Although there are mines here, so well done by Andreas to not leave this place completely defenseless. And I do love this split force idea, even though we haven't seen a lot of like two-pronged attacks yet. I think this is important play for more players to be trying to split their army to get clutch surrounds. Like, for instance, right now, if Andreas had taken half of that army and brought it around the other side, these units would not have easily run away. They may have been fully taken out. And this is just part of the one control group syndrome that we are all lured into and have been for decades since StarCraft 2 finally allowed all unit selection. There's a little bit of a myth going around that all unit selection was a limitation of technology originally, but that was not the case. They thought the game would be better with limited selection. And actually now we see Riptide pushing in here, taking out a few of those Shroud Stones. A miasma going down on these units, and they are They are forced to retreat. While there are also other units engaging over here. I'm not sure that went very well for Riptide on the bottom side here. Although maybe on the high ground here. Although another huge hit by those Molten Touch. They're not Molten Touch, sorry, but they are Hellborn firing down that splash damage. Look at how many low units there are. See that system shot going down so they can zip their way out of there. While these other units, there's just 4 Exos and a Lancer over here. I think they're deciding it's time to retreat and maybe regroup with the rest of the units. Wow, a whole bunch of medtechs added, which is super important as there were so many low Exos and now they're almost all back up to full. 2 Vulcans added as well. So Riptide with some pretty solid macro here. Up to 4 bases, well, so is Andreas. Infernal, oh sorry, I should say 5 bases as we see the 5th base going down now. And as Infernal, you want to maybe stay ahead of your Vanguard opponent. But there is some thought or discussion in the community now that maybe Vanguard has the fastest eco of the 3 factions. Ever since the Celestials was nerfed as it needed to be. It needed to be after the most recent patch. And Riptide moving out for the energy camp. What do we got from Andreas here? His army, lots of Hellborn here. That's going to be really good against this Bioforce, as well as the Miasma. System shocks going down on these units so they can rush up real quickly. The Miasmas go down, but the system shock also helps when pulling back. And in fact, that's allowed these units to avoid almost all the Miasma damage there. And we see how just taking a few seconds, pulling back and using all of those heals from the medtechs allows these units to get right back up to full. What are we dealing with over here? Fiends? Is it a drop? Yes, there is a drop. My bad, I've not been watching the minimap as quite as well as I needed to in these games. But this drop is getting some damage, and I am watching the minimap now because the last game, while we were watching the drop, that was when the GG happened. So this drop sent into the back. 1 Gaunt, I think, got taken out, and that's because 1 Fiend accidentally loaded up in here. It's a little unfair that the Gaunts take up 1 spot in here, but so does a Brute. Gaunts produce 2 at a time. But maybe that's not the balanced wine we need. I'll just mosey on off that one. Andreas takes out the trees here in the middle of the base, but I think that was mostly just to scout to see if it had been taken by Riptide yet. And both players kind of trying to stay on their side of the map and go for the macro play. And we can see their supplies are pretty close, even though this base for Andreas is slower, considerably slower than this one here. This drop has, well, it teleported home and then I guess it found this. It's not clear they saw the base. They did see these units coming and did try and run away. System shock being used, but these trees are still here, so those Exos cannot chase down the dropship. Instead, we just see a very big force. Now, this is a maxed out force. Both of them reaching max right around the same time here. Riptide with more Luminite in the bank, and that's largely because... Yikes! That is largely because he's been on more bases for longer. Lots of Hellborn here, and that is looking very dangerous. That can definitely one-shot units, as we just saw that Lancer go down. But when you have this many Hellborn, it is really clutch to focus fire them in such a way that their splash damage is going to be maximized. So here we see them firing in on these front Vulcans. I'm not so sure about that. Although, since they were standing in Miasma, that actually worked out really well. We still see a drop over here while this is happening. And Riptide's getting pushed back. So many low units. The Vulcans turn to fight the Fiends off. But the Gaunt drop is over. And look at that, it's like 12 Hellborn or so. Maybe 10. Hellcarrier out on the map now. The Hellborn are okay against that, of course. Not super great. And where are you going, Mr. Drop? Just chilling, I guess. Where did the Shroud come? This is a Shroud follow, it looks like. No? Okay, the Hellborn did a lot of focus fire onto the one Hornet there. Which normally you don't like to see that because that's basically a huge waste of those units. But now they pull back, they're focused on the ground units. A lot of Lancers have been taken out by a combination of Brutes and Hellborns. A single bombing run going down, but it's not clear it got a lot, if anything. And the Miasmas keep going down, but fairly good unit control by Riptide to keep them alive. Still drops happening. And Riptide has pulled back in a more defensive posture while Andreas has taken the center of the map. And this Hellborn force is trying to retake the tower. Magmadons have been added. They seem a little derpy there right now. And will we see a dragon? This is fairly late in the game to not see a dragon out. Are we on tier 3? Yeah, that is an Elder Shrine. More derpy units. So many over there derping. It would be pretty cool if they could fix some of that derpiness. Although some folks think that derpiness is part of playing RTS. Not just from a, things should be designed this way standpoint. But maybe also from a more fundamental standpoint that you're just never going to have perfect pathfinding and perfect decision making from the AI. So no matter how they code it, there will be some kind of behavior that feels derpy or wrong. Lots of Vulcans here, and they are on the warpath. They have moved into the center base. And for now, they are mowing down the Shroud Stones. But we're seeing units finally push through the Sim City, which has been a little hard for Andreas to get a good engage here. The Magmadons sort of wisely keep pulling back as the rest of the units try and get in position. Hellborn, with their big range, can sit in the back and rain down the fireballs. But you kind of want to force these units to fight under those miasmas so you can get even more damage over time. These units overcommitted and have to pull back now. And I didn't actually notice here that there was a split off, and half of that army from Riptide went to take out this base here. And now Andreas is trying to engage that half of the army, but that's when the rest of the army shows up. And Andreas, a couple of defensive miasmas here to zone those units back. But I don't think Andreas wants to engage in this choke. All those Vulcans jump jet forward, using their cannons to do as much damage as they can to the front line here. Unfortunately, that means standing in the miasma may be longer than they want to. But we see a ton of nanoswarms going down as well. And now it's just Hellborn. And Hellborns are not the greatest when they are by themselves. A ton of Vulcans jump jetting forward and murdering with their machine guns. And that is a second GG from Andreas.